All right, hello and welcome to a Bourbon Note disclaimer. So this is the first video we've ever done. We had to put a disclaimer on, and it's not for any bad reasons.
But probably not the last.
Yeah, probably not the last. So we wanted to put this ahead of this video because this was the first kind of flight fight, multi-tiered flight video that we've ever done. And it was a learning process. And through that process, we definitely learned what not to do. And, and that is make them way too long. So we filmed this in 3 different segments.
You're making this too long.
I know, so we figured the best thing was to yap even more before the video starts. But we filmed this in 3 different segments, and from segment to segment, you kind of forget how long you're taking with it. And then when I tried to edit them all together, it was just super long video. Sure. So I edited them down as much as possible. And then the last flight where we reveal the winners of the whole thing, I just kind of left that alone. It runs a little bit long. But, you know, next time we'll definitely learn not to talk so much about each individual bourbon.
When you have lots and lots of bourbons to taste.
When you get 3 flights of 4, you know, here's number 3, and then we talk for 5 minutes about it, and that's kind of what we did. So, again, learning process. The other thing is we didn't take into consideration that maybe people just listen to these, you know, while you're driving or while you're working or something like that. Maybe you're not watching the screen. And for the first 2 flights, we didn't say what bourbons were in the flight. So if you're not looking at your screen, you don't know what they are.
You can see the bottle's butt.
Yeah, so we wanted to throw that in here. So for the budget flight, we had Evan Williams Bottled and Bond.
Yes. Old
Tub.
Yes.
Old Granddad Bonded.
Yes.
And Early Times Bottled and Bond. Of course, all Bottled and Bond.
Yep.
And then for the not so budget flight, we had E.H. Taylor, Henry McKenna.
Old Forester.
Old Forester Bottled and Bond, and 1792 Bottled and Bond.
Correct.
So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. Hope you guys enjoy the video. We won't be offended if you fast forward a bit through it because it does run a little bit long. So before it runs even longer, we'll just let it go here and cut to the video.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bourbon Note. I'm Greg.
I'm Ben.
And today, we're drinking bourbon. All right, Ben, a lot of bourbon here. What's this all about?
Okay, so gonna do a flight, which is always fun.
Always fun.
Kind of thought it'd be fun to do a couple of different flights, kind of a bracket sort of thing.
Sure.
And then pick a couple of winners at the end. So what we're gonna do here is a budget-friendly Bottled and Bond flight. And then after this, we're gonna do a not so budget-friendly Bottled and Bond flight.
Okay.
We're gonna pick our 2 favorites from each one, and then put those 2 against each other. So in the final one, we'll have 2 budget ones and 2 not so budget ones.
But I'm gonna pick my winners and you're gonna pick your winners, and we may pick different winners.
So what we're doing here is we're drinking the same 4 bourbons, but we're not drinking them in the same order.
Correct.
So this is
mix
bourbon
these up.
A, B, C, and D, but these have been mixed up. So when Greg is drinking his first bourbon, it might be a completely different one than what I'm drinking. And that's just so we don't influence each other on taste or what we think it might be. So we're gonna film this.
But we'll probably fast forward it because we're not gonna do a lot of tasting notes. We're just gonna pick A, B, go back and forth. Pick our top 2 from this flight, and then next time up we'll do another flight and pick our top 2, and then that 3rd flight will be my winners and your winners. And my guess is there'll be more than 4 bottles because some of them will be specific to me, some will be specific to you.
Oh, you mean as far as the winners?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're gonna drink them, at least what I'm gonna do is drink them this way, do some water in between, and then drink them back down the other way. So drinking them in both different orders. Anyway, we'll probably fast forward here, but we're gonna do the tasting. We'll leave the camera running just in case something awesome happens.
Hopefully something happens.
Yeah.
Awesome happens.
All right, let's do it.
All right. All right, we are done with the first flight. It was a challenge.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you, like, how did you?
I went back and forth. I did change my order a couple of times. Ultimately, my number 1 and 2 changed places, but I felt there was a top 2 and a bottom 2.
Yeah.
All 4 are good bourbons. I like all 4. Would be happy to drink any of them. But there was a top 2 and they changed places, and the bottom 2 actually changed places as well.
That's what I was gonna say, and like I said at the beginning of this, there is no loser in this fight, because we picked these because we like all 4 of these. So 4th place is still a good go-to daily pour for me, any of these.
Agreed.
All right, so we're gonna figure out what these are. So this is bourbon A, B, C, and D, and we have letters on the bottom of the glasses.
Yep. So my fourth place
All right.
is, I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, do you want to know what it is?
Yeah, you can tell me.
Well, yeah, no, let's then not tell you. Let's just, not ever tell anybody. It's like, we'll just keep this information. It was a stupid question to ask. Do you want me to tell you what it is? Your fourth place was A, Early Times.
And I think I've only had that once. I do own 2 bottles, but I haven't opened them yet. But I had one here.
Yeah, we did a review of that.
Right.
All right, so my fourth place is
Charlie.
C, Old Granddad.
OGD.
All right. You said you got one that had a slight licorice note to it, and I think that's what that is, because I don't get licorice very often. When I do, it's typically a high rye one. And so I'm wondering do you remember which one you said you got licorice on?
I actually got it on 2, but I don't know if it was the first one influencing the next one, because it's kind of, so I got it a little bit early when I was first tasting. So these 2, let's see. All right, so my third place.
So you're going, wait, I thought you were going, oh yeah, you're going left to right just like me. Okay, correct. Your third place.
My third place is, this one still has bourbon in it.
Old Granddad.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. And this was the licorice one.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why when we were doing the flight, I said, I think I got to the same licorice note that you did.
Yep.
And I didn't want to tell you that I've previously gotten that on high rye stuff. And that didn't really influence me because I had already kind of made my pick on that before I noticed the licorice thing. All right, so my third place.
Wow. You sure you want to know?
Yeah, of course I do.
It's an Evan Williams.
All right. So mine is B, my third one. We're writing these down so when we do the next flight, we can remember which ones out of this so we know which ones to, not that we'll probably forget that, but. All right, so we're coming up to our top 2.
And I have to tell you at this point, I am elated. Like, this could not have gone better for me.
That Old Tub isn't in your bottom ones? The Old Tub and Evan Williams? Because these are your number 1 and 2 now.
This is, if I were to pick brands, I mean, I only recently had OGD, and I like it a lot. And Early Times we did a review of, and it's a good bourbon. But I absolutely love Old Tub. I realize that's a controversial statement, but you're wrong.
I do too. I love Old Tub.
And recently, it's probably been about a year I've been drinking Evan Williams, and their bottle bond is just amazing, and it's way underpriced. It really is an underpriced bourbon.
Well, and underpriced at Costco currently in Minnesota, they're selling Old Tub for $14.99, which is ridiculous. All right, so these are our number 2 picks. So these are the 2 that are going to move forward for us. So you're going to have 2 different ones than we might have one that's the same.
Yeah.
But so whatever these 2 are going to move forward to the final one against the top 2 in the not so budget.
Yeah,
mid to, and some of them kind of harder to find.
Sure.
All right, let's see your number 2 pick.
I can't really see that.
Number 2 is B, which makes your number 1 Old Tub. Look at that, Old Tub fanboy comes pulling through.
Last time through, I switched these 2.
Did you really?
I did.
But they were still your number 1 and number 2.
And they're very close.
Okay.
Very close.
So so B is your number 2.
And then Delta.
And then D is your number 1. All right.
Old Tub.
Old Tub. D for number 2 for me, which means mine was A, Early Times Bottled and Bond. From the very beginning, this was the clear winner for me. Hands down.
Huh. That's interesting because from the very beginning, that was the clear loser for me.
Yeah, that's...
And that is curious.
Well, I have a theory.
Okay.
So, Early Times is a Brown-Forman product. Now, I know you like Brown-Forman products, but you historically have not... You've needed a little nudging into the Old Forester line, and I get a lot of Old Forester influence on Early Times Bottled and Bond.
True, but so that spent the majority of the time as the 3rd bourbon I tasted. Was that the first bourbon you tasted?
Yes.
That's got to play a part.
It could.
It could.
Well, but you know what though? Even coming back down, this one was clearly like it. I was saying before we kind of came back and started giving our results here that This one, even after drinking them out of order, like this flavor profile kind of stood out as my favorite, and it wasn't really influenced by the other ones. Like it didn't get chopped down as they sometimes do to each other. All right, well, so this has been the first flight. So what we're gonna do—
First half of the 3-part series.
First half of the 3. So what we're gonna do, cut the video here, and however much time elapses between, we may do this later on this evening or maybe tomorrow, depending on how much time we have, but we wanna give time in between flights. So through the miracle of editing, this will only be a second for you, but we'll come back and then we'll do our next flight, which is gonna be the not so budget friendly, some of them a little bit harder to find, and we'll see what our first and second place are in that one. So, all right, well, we'll see you in just a second.
After the jump. Hey, welcome back to the Bourbon Note. We are in mid-flight.
Yeah, so these ones are gonna be a little bit more on the expensive side, or mid-price side. So we're gonna do the same thing we did in the last one. This is A, B, C, and D. These have been mixed up, so we're not drinking the same bourbon at the same time, and we don't know what order they're in.
Correct.
Gonna blind them, pick 2 winners. They already know that because in video time, that was 3 minutes ago. Yeah. So let's get into the tasting here, and then I think, again, we'll probably fast forward through this.
Agreed.
And then come back in a little bit here, so cheers.
All right, welcome back. Welcome to live, as opposed to the time-lapse, fast-forwarded kind of thing.
So we're back. Done with this flight. This was really difficult.
Really.
Because just like the other one, there's not a bad bourbon in this. Should we let her rip here? And let me get the notepad so we can write these down and remember them.
Right.
All right, so you're number 4.
My number 4.
That is C, Henry McKenna.
This is shocked. That's not where I thought this ended on this list. I have to be honest with you.
So as much as you don't have a dog in the fight of which one wins.
We recently did a review of this and really, really were impressed.
Well, I'm really, really impressed with all 4 of these. Well, so that's the thing. It's like, no matter how much you don't have a dog in the fight, you're always going to be shocked. Yeah, exactly.
But I am shocked that's my number 4.
All right, so my number 4 is...
Wow.
What is it?
We agree.
Is it Henry McKenna?
Yeah.
Is it really? Oh my God.
Like, I genuinely am shocked. Like, we were so impressed with this in our review, and that was legitimate. We really are impressed with it.
Oh yeah, it's delicious.
I am surprised that we both pulled that as number 4.
Well, again though, there's no loser here. Last place in this flight is going to be an amazing bourbon.
Yeah.
It's just kind of funny that we both picked that, and I was just saying before we started recording this that this is a really good bottle of this, because it's single barrel, so they can vary. Wow. So, all right, so we're in agreement on that. So Henry McKenna does not make it to the final round.
That surprises me. I actually assumed that was much later in my flight. All right, so my third choice.
Your third choice is 1792. Bottled in bond, of course, because it's a bottled in bond flight.
Suspected that may have been what it was. It's a Barton product that we absolutely love. We've got to do a flight of just their stuff because their flight is amazing.
Yeah, love it. 1792 full proof is one of the best values in bourbon out there if you like high proof stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so my number 3 is...
And now we get to the point of this show where Ben cries.
What is it?
Bravo.
What? Number 3 is E.H. Taylor. Wow, okay. All right, so B. Now, E.H. Taylor, I love. I had a hard time. So these are the 2 that I had a hard time separating a little bit.
Sure.
Which is interesting because I did a flight not that long ago, a blind. Just my wife and I were hanging out down here having a drink, and it's like, hey, let me pour you a flight and see if you can pick them. And out of them, and it was this. It was like a Knob Creek and something else 100 proof. I can't remember what it was, but I was easily able to pick the E.H. Taylor out because I love E.H. Taylor. So yeah, that's interesting. All right, so my top 2 are going to be this and this, and your top two are going to be this and this.
Old Forester.
Interesting for you having an Old Forester in the top two because
I agree.
you're...
Well, my tastes are changing.
Well, in the last video, or in the last flight,
Yeah.
Early Times came in last for you, which is
Yeah.
a very, very Old
Similar.
Forester note. It's a signature Brown-Forman. So this will be interesting. All right, so let's get to the number two here.
Okay, this is the big one for, well, it tells you what your number one is.
So your number two is Old Forester, bottled in bond.
Wow.
So that's D.
Holy cow, that's still a good bourbon.
Yeah. All right, so my number two, and these two I had the hardest time between. 1792. Okay, so I wasn't trying to guess which bourbon was which, but I would have not guessed that this was 1792. I thought 1792 would have stood out a little more being a high rye.
Yeah.
And I think Old Forester is kind of considered high rye, but I don't get high rye notes from that at all. I think their high rye is kind of like Wild Turkey's high rye, where it's
around the 13%.
Yeah, it's over 8%, so it's high rye.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would not have guessed that. Okay, so
that was A for you for the third one.
which
Or
means
number two. Yeah.
So then B
So B is my winner.
is your number one.
Which will verify this, but I'm pretty confident. Yep.
So E.H. Taylor coming home for the number one spot for you. And then Old Forester,
Old
which is
Forester.
interesting because I think we've learned something about my taste profile because I picked Early Times as my number one and Old Forester as my number one.
That is a curious consistency. That
Yeah. I mean, that's a noticeable
yeah.
thing because these
So-
have noticeable similarities.
Yeah.
Two Brown-Forman products at 100 proof.
And what did I pick for my favorite?
E.H. Taylor.
A bean product.
No, Buffalo
No,
Trace.
and bean product, and then.
Oh
a
yeah,
Buffalo
in the
Trace
last one. I thought you meant just now.
Yeah.
I said, did you already forget? We just said that. No, so your favorite was the Old Tub, so Beam product, yes. And then Buffalo Trace product for...
Not super similar.
So Greg's
but
taste is more allocated. Well, aside from the Old Tub.
Old Tub. When you see it for less than 200, buy it.
Yeah.
I did see someone post on Instagram recently that Old Tub was $200.
Yeah, no, I sent you that.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was
that's
on,
right. Yeah.
it was on Overpriced Bourbon, which is a great Instagram.
Never overpay for bourbon, but overpay for Old Tub.
Yeah. If you see Old Tub for $200, certainly pick it up.
That's right. Even if you can't pay for your rent.
That was maybe the most egregious one I've ever seen.
Yeah, that really is pretty crazy.
All right, well, this has been interesting. So moving forward into the finals is this one, that one,
and not that one.
that one. So Henry McKenna is the only one that...
That's curious.
Did we have the same one in the last? Did we have anything that was the same?
We had...
No, we didn't. So we were completely different in the last flight. So the only one that we picked the same was Henry McKenna.
No, but we also had one that didn't move forward.
Yes, yeah, we did have... Old Granddad didn't move forward.
Old Granddad and then Henry McKenna.
But this is the only one that we put the same bourbon in the same spot.
Right, yeah.
So, all right, so here's what we're gonna do. So the next, when we cut away and come back to you next, which realistically, we'll probably film that tomorrow.
Maybe today, maybe tomorrow.
Or maybe after the game.
We have a football game that's
Yeah.
coming up.
So now we're gonna take both of our
So does that mean...
top twos. So
Oh.
we're gonna have different flights now for
That's
this next
true.
one.
We'll still have 4 glasses, but
Yep.
I have different juice in the
Yeah.
glasses than you.
Yep, exactly.
For 2 of
So
them.
we'll have a couple of them the same, but then a couple of them different. So,
And you want to talk about hard to pick?
so now we're gonna have
choose this Old Tub, not this, and
Evan Williams.
that's
So
right,
yours will be that Evan Williams,
an Old
and
Tub.
Old Tub. Mine will be Old Tub, Early Times,
These 2.
and these two. So
That's a pretty awesome flight too.
yeah, exactly. So this will be interesting. So again, through the power of editing, we'll be back very shortly in your time to do the final flight and see what we come up with.
To wrap up,
Bam! Second encore!
and we are back again. We could almost call this our second encore.
Kind of, yeah. So we're back for the final round.
We hope
Which
it's the
is-
final round.
Well, this is the final round in this one, unless we want to...
Yeah, who knows?
keep adding to this, but the final round of what we planned on doing.
Yep.
So we have kind of different flights here.
Yep.
So Greg's flight includes
Is these 4 bottles.
E.H. Taylor, Evan Williams Bottled and Bond, Old Forester, and Old Tub. So that's these here on the...
But they're mixed up. I don't know what order they're in. They're blind.
Right.
Yep.
And so my flight includes Old Forester, Old Tub, 1792, and Early Times. All right, let's get into the taste here.
All right, so I'm gonna start with the nosing.
So we will most likely cut the tasting out like we did with the last ones, and,
Yeah, it probably gets a bit boring.
and see you in a little bit here.
Welcome back again.
All right, so
We are done.
the final flight is done. So let's go with our number 4, which is on both of our left. You go ahead.
All right, my number 4.
Your number 4 is Evan Williams Bottled and Bond.
Oh, wow. Sorry, Evan Williams. I really enjoyed that. But that really does mess up my theory about what I was drinking.
Does it really?
It does. I had guesses, and that was not number 4.
All right, my number 4, and this one I really liked, obviously, because it made it through.
So that said B, just to...
That's your, B. Well, because we got 6 out here
Yeah.
now, so. But I just wrote down Evan Williams. I didn't write down.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So.
But my glass said B,
Okay.
right?
Yes. Let me
Okay.
see it again. Yes.
Okay. Just make sure. Okay. It's my B.
Okay, so my
Your B would be Old
would
Tub.
be Old Tub. Okay. Just to make sure we did
Yes,
that properly.
yes.
I had to second guess that
Yeah,
for a
if
second.
this were to say B, and
Do we have to redo this again?
Yeah, that's terrible.
No, I remember when we
Yeah.
poured these out, you poured them out. Okay, so number 4 for me was really good, but this one seemed a little bit different than all the rest of them.
Okay.
And so this was my
Least favorite.
least favorite, but by a very, very small margin. So here we go. Cheers. 1792. All right.
Sorry, Barton, Mr. Barton.
You had said previously when we were doing the last flight, you would love to do a flight of just 1792 because we really like them.
We do.
Still want to do that. So this coming in last place does not mean
Yeah.
that I don't like it. It's it's a really good bourbon.
Yeah.
All right, let's go number 3.
All right, number 3. You want to write down 1792?
Oh, yeah.
Number 4 there. All right, my third place.
This is the stuff I was excited about.
Is
So-
getting it wrong.
Well, it's not getting it wrong because we
Well,
didn't
we
go
got
into
it
this to try to like pick which bourbon was which. The intent was to figure out which ones
It's this one. It's
which ones you liked the best and which ones were, kind of stood out above the other ones. It is E.H. Taylor,
Yeah.
your number 3.
It's
The
his.
reason I think it's interesting is because this is your number 1 from
the second flight.
the second flight. And so my number 1 from the second flight was, what was it?
Old Forester.
Was it? Okay, yeah, it was. So this one made it in. This was my number 2 from the second flight. Okay, so your number 3 is E.H.T. All right.
Wow.
So we know now that you have one budget and one non-budget in your top 2. So Old Tub and Old Forester, which you have not historically been the biggest Old Forester fan.
Yeah, but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe my perception of my taste buds is totally...
And the Early Times was your last place in the first flight, which is a Brown-Forman product, which we've talked about in this video. And
yeah, so maybe I'm just totally inconsistent and you can't rely on me.
it could be. All right, so here's number 3 for me.
Okay. Do you want to know? Do you have a guess? Do you want to throw out a guess?
I think it's Old Tub.
It is Old Tub.
It's Old Tub, yeah. I love Old Tub. It's one of my go-to bourbons.
Yep.
I don't know if we included any of the drops from the tastings in this at this point.
Sure.
I might throw some of them in there, but just
Yeah.
in case we didn't. Found a Play-Doh sort of note on this one.
Yeah, so Play-Doh
In the
as
tasting.
in the child. Is it a toy? I don't know what Play-Doh
It's
is.
like yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what Play-Doh is. Like Play-Doh, what you're thinking Play-Doh is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just gotta, on the nose mostly, not so much on the palate.
So which one? I don't know what my old tub is.
And so, I love Old Tub so much that I'm now wondering if I'm gonna get that every time. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It sounds like it's an insult, but it's not really. But sometimes when you're drinking a bourbon, you just get a random weird note. So when I told you I got a Play-Doh note, you said you thought it was something
thought it
that
was this
not,
one.
Yeah, that was not in your flight. And I was like, I think it might be in your flight.
I was thinking the Play-Doh note was from this one, but that's okay.
So I did Old Tub number 3.
Yep. Number
Which means my top 2 are the 2 winners from both previous flights.
That is consistency for you.
Yeah, so this one won the second flight for me.
Yep.
And this one won the first flight. So now it's going to be interesting. Now we're going a $25 versus a $45 bottle from the same distillery.
And I'm doing these 2, which means this one is in both of our contender list.
And is interesting because, as we said a couple minutes ago, you have not historically been the biggest Brown-Forman fan.
So,
And now it's going against the one that got number 1 for you
yeah,
in the budget one, which is a bourbon you love.
it is. It's one I drink a fair amount. It's one of
Me
my
too.
go-tos.
I love Old Tub.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says.
I totally
absolutely
agree.
love Old
Yep.
Tub.
And my opinion of Old Forester is changing, definitely. It's one I tried very early when I was trying bourbon several years ago.
That's what I said. Historically,
Yeah.
you haven't been into it. And Old Forester and early times, and a lot of Brown-Forman stuff, I guess, but Old Forester in particular in early times, they definitely have their own kind of
Signature style.
signature style. Like, it is different.
Yeah.
And apparently that's just what I'm into as opposed to the other ones. So let's go into number 2. So second place.
Well, okay, so typically when you're actually picking a winner, we go ahead and pick number 1, right?
do you want to pick the number 1 first and
I
then
think
say
we-
the runner-up?
Exactly.
All right, let's go for number 1 here. So
Number
one
one.
out of the budget and the not so budget. It's my drum roll here. Greg, you are officially the number 1 Old Tub fanboy.
That's a D.
That is your number 1.
that is a
D.
D.
Yeah, so that was your, I mean, just, you crushed it with that.
There's something about it. The first time I had Old Tub, I was sitting here, you poured me one, it was not on camera. And
I remember
thought,
this. I was going to bring this up because you kind of actually were kind of giving me and Dan a little bit of hard time about it because you were like, just jokingly, but
Yeah.
we had found this. We're like, oh yeah, it's this new budget Jim
Yeah.
Beam product. It's like $22. And you're like, wow, what is Old Tub? What is that?
Yeah.
And we were just kind of jarring
Right.
each other a little bit or whatever.
Right.
And then you tasted it and then got a bottle of it and really just kind of fell in love with it.
And then, yeah, so then I tasted it and then got a bottle and thought, this just really is the sweet spot for me. And I've had it, it's been 8 months or whatever, and I bought a couple of bottles. And this is really, it's what I like in bourbon.
It is a good bourbon.
Yeah.
It's
and so
cornbread,
it works great
it's
for me.
dry, dusty corn, it's cinnamon.
Peanut shell, the cinnamon,
Yeah.
that just works very well for me.
Yeah, it's rich and it's cheap.
Yeah,
and
and it's 21 bucks or so,
so your second place was the Old Forester.
which is an amazing bourbon. I'm really impressed with it.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to go my number 1.
Oh, you're number
So
1.
I'm going Old Forester versus Early Times here.
So this is really a $22 or a $45 pick.
Yeah, it really is, absolutely. So
And I have a guess.
let's go for it. I'm going to take a sip.
Wow. The most amazing thing is we both picked budget bourbons.
Is it Early Times, my number
Early
1?
Times Bottled and Bond is your
Nice.
best in show.
That one, hands down.
That's awesome.
For me.
That's awesome.
It really was. It was no contest. Like in the first flight, they were all very, very close, but I had a hands down winner,
Okay.
and it was that. And in this one, I did battle a little bit between these two, between the Old Forester and so this would
one.
be the
Old Forester.
the Old Forester. And then it's like, this one's a little bit more rich, a little bit more, there's just something a little bit more to this.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because this is same distillery, same proof point. I don't know what the age is, but
And perhaps
I mean,
different
they're
mash bill.
obviously at least 4
some
years,
difference.
but-
yeah.
I would assume probably the same mash bill.
Could be.
But this one, yeah, I think that if I put this one up against even the ones that lost, because here's the other thing: when you do a flight like this, if you're to bring back the Henry McKenna or bring back the OGD, you might have different results.
Yep.
You know, because
you
we
do-
didn't taste Henry McKenna against this one,
And
or
if you
against
did it
this
again
one.
tomorrow, you could have different results.
Could be, but I will say this: this is my number one pick in the not so budget one. This is my number one pick in the budget one. They were both my 1 and 2 pick in the final.
Yep.
So I think I just have a palate that enjoys Brown-Forman stuff. I like Old Forester, I like Early Times.
That's fair enough.
You know?
So this was my number 1 pick in the budget
And your overall winner.
and my overall winner. This was, what was my number 1 pick in the...
You're in the second flight.
Yeah.
It was E.H. Taylor.
But that scored 3rd in this,
Yep, that scored 3rd.
and this one came in 2nd. Those two were very close, and that was the debate, was these two here. But,
So we both, like you said, picked budget bourbons as our number one.
and this one was pretty easy. In the first flight, there was an instant winner. And then in this flight, I was pretty confident right away with my number 1 choice. 2 and 3 were my debate.
So 2 and 3. So E.H. Taylor versus.
Yeah, the Old Forester was my real challenge.
I didn't write those down. This is interesting. This
is.
has been an interesting experiment for sure.
Yep.
I kind of like the fact that 2 budget bourbons actually came out on top overall.
So we've been wanting to do a video for some time about hunting and how much you pay for bourbon and...
Which I think we should probably do very soon.
Totally. But I think this is a great scientific... I mean, nobody can argue with the science in this video.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This has been nothing but...
Yeah, I mean, this is exemplary. We're going to be publishing the results, by the way. But 2 low-cost bourbons came out on top. Honestly, and without any, I mean, total blind flights. And they
Yeah, without
came out
any
on top.
bias.
Yeah.
And
So.
the one that you picked number 1 in the second flight, or the third flight, the finals, was at least one that made it to the second round for me.
Yeah.
So this one, like Old Tub, might be the clear winner here.
But
in the
also,
sense
Old
that
Forester was my number 2 and your number 2 as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
so these
absolutely.
two, to be honest, these two right here are probably the standouts.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, because these 2 made it to both of our finals.
Yeah.
And we're both in the top 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, my takeaway from this, from my personal, number 1, number 2, is the fact that, like you said when I was about to reveal which one was my top 1, like one of these is $25. Unfortunately, not available in Minnesota,
Occasionally.
but
So it's $25
bourbon.
plus you have to spend $300 in gas.
yeah, exactly. So that's interesting, actually, because people that live in Minnesota that are watching this can't get this. So to them, this
eventually.
is actually a rare bourbon. But if you go most other places, you can find this for $25 for a liter of it.
Go to Fargo.
This is minimum $45 around here.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever seen it for less than that.
Right.
Anything in the Whiskey Row series is
It seems
$45 and up.
Yep.
So it's kind of interesting to see the difference between a budget version of same distillery, same proof. What I want to do is do a Old Forester bottled in bond versus Old Forester 100 proof. Same proof point.
I have both of those.
Yeah, so that'd be interesting.
Okay.
Anyway, that's a side note. This has been a lot of fun.
It has.
Hopefully you're still watching at this point. I think this just kind of goes to show that price doesn't really matter.
That's right.
Availability doesn't really matter. Just whatever you like is what you like. And I think we've both proven we like the budget pours a little bit more.
I agree.
And we have really expensive bourbons on both of our shelves.
Mm-hmm.
But when we did a blind flight versus, or two proof points versus, or guess I'm gonna have to cut this out. 2 price points versus each other.
Yeah.
One a little bit higher, one a little bit lower. In the end, we both picked the lower price point.
That's right.
So, all right, well, this has been our long and drawn out day of doing bottled and bond pours, which I have absolutely loved.
It's been awesome.
This has been a lot of fun for us. This has been a few hours in our time of doing this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's
Well, hopefully I can dwindle this
Edited
video down to like
little.
20 minutes or something like that. But
Yeah.
this has been a ton of fun, and it's been a learning process.
totally.
So hopefully you guys maybe can do something similar and see what you come up with.
Yeah.
It's a fun experiment.
Yeah, and if you have some of these bourbons, do a flight yourself and let us know what you think.
Yeah, we'd love to see something in the comments. So,
Absolutely.
all right, well, this has been our Bottled and Bond extravaganza on the Bourbon Note. I'm Ben.
I'm Greg. Thanks for watching. Cheers.